You're 14 years old. Tonight is your wedding night in ancient Rome. You've been prepared by the older women. They've dressed you in white. They've arranged your hair in the traditional 6 braids. They've whispered things that made your hands shake. But here's what they didn't tell you. What's about to happen isn't just a wedding night. It's a ritual. And the ritual has rules that will haunt every moment of what comes next. The year is 186 before Christ. You're standing in a villa outside Rome. Through the walls, you can hear men laughing, wine being poured, the sounds of a celebration you're no longer part of. In this room, you're alone with a man you've met exactly 3 times. He's 32 years old, a Roman citizen, a man of property. By law, by custom, by every rule that governs your world, you belong to him now. Think about that for a moment. Not married to him, not married to him, belonging to him. Like furniture, like livestock, like any other piece of property that changes hands with a contract and a ceremony. But here's where the story gets darker. If you believe that the documented records of history's most terrifying practices must be remembered, consider liking this video and subscribing. Your support helps us uncover the rituals that were deliberately erased from the historical record. What the first I'm about to show you comes from fragments, pieces of evidence that survived because they were too obscure to censor, too scattered to destroy completely. A letter from Cato the Elder, discovered in the Vatican archives in 1892. Graffiti found in Pompeii during excavations in 1964, written by women in a private bathhouse. Medical writings from Soranus of Ephesus, preserved in Byzantine copies that church censors somehow missed, and archaeological evidence from Roman villas, specific architectural features in wedding chambers that make no sense until you understand what they were designed for. Here's what these sources reveal. The wedding night ritual wasn't just about consummating a marriage. It was about demonstrating absolute authority. It was about breaking a human being's will in a single night so completely that resistance became unthinkable. This wasn't random. This was systematic. This was taught. Let me walk you through what the evidence shows actually happened. Picture the room you're in. It's not decorated for romance. Roman wedding chambers, the ones archaeologists have studied, have specific features. Heavy doors with external locks, windows placed high and small, and in many cases, iron rings set into the walls at specific heights. Think about what those rings were for. Now, here's where it gets worse. According to the letter from Cato, there was a formal instruction system. Older men, fathers, uncles, older brothers, would teach younger men the proper method for a wedding night. Not love, not tenderness. Method. The goal, explicitly stated in Cato's letter, was to establish dominion immediately and completely, so that obedience becomes nature. Read that again. So that obedience becomes nature. This wasn't about intimacy. This was about psychological engineering. The method had 3 stages. Each one documented, each one more disturbing than the last. Stage 1. Isolation and disorientation. You're left alone in the chamber for hours before he enters. No explanation, no timeline, just waiting. The women who prepared you are gone. Your family is celebrating in another part of the house. You can hear them, but you can't reach them. Cato describes this as necessary separation to sever childhood connections. Think about the psychology of that. You're still a child. You've been pulled from everything familiar. And you're waiting for something you don't fully understand. In a locked room, listening to your family celebrate your fear. Medical texts from Soranus describe the physical effects. Elevated heart rate, rapid breathing, sometimes fainting. He mentions these symptoms not with concern but as indicators that the subject is properly prepared. The subject, not the bride. Not the girl, the subject. Stage 2. The demonstration. When he finally enters, there's a script he follows. Not improvised violence, a specific sequence of actions designed to establish what Roman legal texts call patria potestas in matrimonio, paternal power in marriage. Here's what makes this especially sinister. It wasn't supposed to be brutal in the way you might imagine. That would be too simple. Brutality can create resistance, defiance, the desire for revenge. No, this was more calculated. According to fragments preserved in later Byzantine marriage manuals that copied Roman practices, the husband was instructed to alternate moments of gentleness, a soft touch, a kind word immediately followed by assertion of absolute control. The psychological term for this didn't exist in ancient Rome, but we know it now: intermittent reinforcement. The same technique used to break the will of prisoners, the same pattern that creates learned helplessness. You never know which version of him you're going to get. Gentle or dominating, kind or cruel. So you freeze, you stop predicting, you stop resisting, you just submit to whatever comes next, because resistance might make it worse, or might make it better, and you have no way to know. Think about doing that to a 14-year-old child. The graffiti from Pompeii includes a line written in the women's bathhouse where men weren't allowed. Prima nocta, ultima spes. First night, last hope. Another reads, Moria antequem vivo. I die before I live. These weren't poetic metaphors. These were literal descriptions of what the wedding night did to women's sense of self. But here's the third stage, and this is what truly reveals the systematic nature of this practice. Stage 3, the morning ritual. When dawn comes, there's a specific ceremony. The family gathers, the couple emerges, and the bride must perform a ritual act in front of everyone. She must serve her husband breakfast. She must do it on her knees, and she must thank him publicly for accepting her into his household. Roman historians, like Plutarch, mention this custom in passing, as if it's normal, as if it's sweet. The bride demonstrates her gratitude and submission on the morning after her union. But here's what modern psychological analysis of these texts reveals. The public performance isn't about gratitude, it's about cementing what happened in private, and it's about making her complicit in her own subjugation by forcing her to perform acceptance in front of witnesses. If she refuses, she shames her entire family. The marriage can be annulled. She can be returned to her father in disgrace. In some cases, she can be punished legally for breach of contract. So she kneels, she serves, she thanks him, and everyone who watches thinks they're seeing a happy bride. This is what the Roman Empire did to women for centuries, not in moments of chaos or war, but as standard practice, as tradition, as something so normal that historians barely bothered to document it. Now, here's where the archaeological evidence becomes crucial. In 2011, during excavations of a villa in Herculaneum, archaeologists discovered something that confirmed what the textual fragments suggested. A wedding chamber preserved by volcanic ash with the layout intact, heavy door, high windows, iron rings in the walls, but there was something else. Scratches, dozens of them, carved into the plaster near the floor, where someone kneeling or lying down would be able to reach. Chemical analysis of the scratches revealed they were made over time, not in one night, but across weeks or months. The same room used repeatedly, and in the scratches, barely legible words in Latin. Mater, mother, auxilium. Help, Moria, I am dying. One word repeated 11 times in different locations around the room. Cur? Why? Think about what that represents. A girl, or maybe multiple girls over time, scratching words into a wall, calling for their mothers, asking why. And here's what haunts me about this discovery. The villa was owned by a wealthy family, respected citizens. The kind of people who left statues and inscriptions praising their virtues, their honor, their devotion to Roman values. And in a locked room in their house, someone scratched the word help into the wall, so many times the plaster wore away. This wasn't an aberration. This was normal aid. This was so normal that no one thought to document it as unusual. If this moment in history doesn't move you to learn more, you might be missing the lesson our ancestors died to teach. But the story doesn't end with discovery. It ends with deliberate erasure. When Christian Rome took over, You might expect they would have condemned this practice, right? Jesus' teachings about love, about treating others with dignity, about protecting the vulnerable. But here's what actually happened. Church fathers like Augustine and Jerome, writing in the 4th and 5th centuries AD, mention Roman marriage customs extensively. They write about wedding ceremonies, about proper behavior, about the sanctity of marriage, but they never mention this ritual. Not to condemn it, not to reform it. They just don't mention it. Why? Because by that time, the practice had evolved. It had been absorbed into Christian marriage doctrine under a different name: wifely obedience. The same psychological techniques, the same power dynamics, the same isolation and intermittent reinforcement, just reframed as godly submission instead of Roman dominion. Think about that level of systematic erasure. A practice so cruel that even the people who opposed Roman paganism on every other ground couldn't bring themselves to condemn it, because condemning it would mean questioning a power structure they wanted to preserve. So they buried it. They stopped writing about the methods. They kept the results, obedient wives, and erased the process that created them. And for 2,000 years, it worked. Until archaeologists broke through a wall in Herculaneum and found the word help scratched 11 times into the plaster. Now, let me show you how we know this wasn't just one family's aberration. Legal texts from the 12 Tables, Rome's foundational laws, include specific provisions about wedding night conduct, not to protect brides, but to protect husbands from accusations. If a bride was injured during the wedding night, the husband had legal immunity, explicitly stated it. As long as the injury occurred within the marriage chamber on the prima nocta, he could not be prosecuted. Think about why that law would need to exist. If wedding nights were gentle, romantic, consensual, why would Roman law need to specifically protect men from prosecution for injuries that occurred? The law itself is evidence of systematic violence normalized to the point of legal protection. And it gets worse. In Roman Egypt, where papyrus records preserved more detail than Roman stone, we have actual contracts. Marriage contracts that include clauses about the wedding night. One contract, dated to 127 after Christ, includes this phrase: "The bride acknowledges that correction during prima nocta is the right of the husband, and no complaint shall be registered regardless of visible marks." Visible marks. They put it in the contract. They anticipated that the bride would be visibly injured, and they made her sign away her right to complain about it before the wedding even happened. She is 14 years old. She can't read the contract. Someone reads it to her, she makes her mark, and she signs away her right to protest her own brutalization. Here's what should truly disturb you about this system. It wasn't hidden because it was rare. It was hidden because it was universal. Every patrician family did this. Every respectable household. Every family that claimed honor and virtue and Roman values. They just didn't talk about it. The same way Victorian England didn't talk about child labor. The same way colonial America didn't talk about what happened to enslaved women. The same way every civilization erases the routine horrors that maintain its power structure. Not because they're ashamed, because acknowledging it would require changing it, and the people in power never want to change the system that gave them power. Let me tell you about one more piece of evidence. In 1847, archaeologists discovered a private library in Rome. Among the scrolls was a personal letter from Cornelia, mother of the Gracchi brothers, one of the most respected women in Roman history. In the letter, written to a friend, she mentions her own wedding night. Briefly, obliquely, she writes, "I learned that night what it meant to be Roman, not the glory, the cost." Then she immediately changes the subject, as if she said too much. That's it. One sentence. From one of the most powerful, respected, educated women in Roman history. And even she could only hint at it. Even she couldn't say it directly. Because saying it directly would mean acknowledging that Roman civilization, the law, the honor, the virtue, the glory was built on the systematic breaking of 14-year-old girls in locked rooms. And that truth was too dangerous to speak. So, it was buried, deliberately, systematically. For 2,000 years, But here's the thing about truth. It scratches itself into walls. It hides in fragments too obscure to censor. It waits in volcanic ash for archaeologists who ask questions historians were afraid to ask. And eventually it comes out. Not because we're better than the Romans. Not because our civilization is more moral. But because someone found the word help carved 11 times into a wall and decided it mattered. Someone read "I am dying" in ancient graffiti and thought it deserved investigation. Someone looked at iron rings in a wall and asked why they were there. And slowly, piece by piece, the truth emerged. This was the Roman wedding night ritual. Not for everyone, slave women had it worse, facing horrors that even these fragments don't fully capture. But for the daughters of citizens, the girls who were supposed to be protected, cherished, honored. This is what their civilization did to them, on purpose, systematically, for centuries, and then erased it so completely that until archaeologists started asking uncomfortable questions, we had no idea. Here's the question that should haunt you. What are we doing right now that will be discovered in 2,000 years? And the people who find it will ask, how did they allow this? How did they normalize this? How did they bury this so successfully that even the victims couldn't speak about it? Because that's how these systems work. Not through dramatic evil, through routine, through normalization, through making the unspeakable so common that speaking about it becomes impossible. The Roman wedding night ritual was hidden for 2,000 years, not because it was secret, but because everyone knew, and no one could say it. And the girls who scratched help into the walls had no one to hear them. Until now. If this exposed something you've never heard before, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we're going to keep uncovering the history they tried to erase. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next investigation into the documented horrors that shaped our world.